So we had a look at pages, components, and layouts. Now everything is looking ugly in our very simple demo application. And we'll create a far more beautiful one in the next course module when we dive into the course project. But let's already understand where we can add styling and where we typically do it. You can add styling directly to a page, and you should add it by adding a style property, and typically you would scope it by adding the scoped property. This ensures that whatever you define here only applies to elements in this page. So only the HTML elements and so on added to this page. And then you can use the normal CSS styles and dynamic view style features like vbind style or vbind class, all the things you already know from Vue.js. So that is how you can style pages, and they are used, or that is used to style the general page content. If you include components, and you should do that for bigger building blocks, then you would add the styling directly in the component, as we're doing it for the header. So in the header, we could actually go a bit further and style our links by removing the underlines with text decoration none and giving them a color of white. Now, if we go back, we would have these links here. Maybe we use black here, but if we hover over one, we turn it to white by adding nav items a hover, nav items a active, and then giving it a color of white. Now we have a certain styling that's applied to our header component. Now that's not all, however. Sometimes you have styles that should be applied application-wide. If you have application-wide styles, you can either use the default.vue file in the layouts folder. However, you will face an issue then if you are using multiple layouts, because layouts not using the default would not get these styles. So let me show you how this works. We could add HTML body and remove the margin here. And if I do that, then we would remove that empty space between the header and the border of our page for the root page for localhost 3000. But on the user's page, once you reload it, because otherwise it didn't pick this up, the margin is back there. So this actually does not work as expected if we reload the page, because then the layout is not taken into account because it has its own layout. Sure, we could add the styling to that too, but wouldn't it be great to have one central place? For that, you can use the assets folder and maybe add a styles subfolder, and in there, let's add a main.css file. The names here don't matter. You could name the folder differently, you could name the CSS file differently. Only the position, the assets folder, matters. Now we could grab our HTML body styling from the default.vue file and put it into the main.css file. Now we just need to inform Vue.js that this CSS file should be loaded into our document for every document. And to do that, we go to that Nuxt config file. I'll dive deeper into that file later. For now, what we can already do is we can go to that CSS property, which you should see by default. If you don't, just add it. This is an array of paths pointing to CSS files that should be loaded into every page. So you pass a string here, and you use the tilde here to reference the root folder. Add doesn't work here. And then you point to assets, styles, main.css. So you point to that CSS file. By doing this and saving that file, now every page will have the code you have in that CSS file included. So if we go back and we reload this page for users, now the margin is gone, and the same is true on every page, no matter how often we reload it. And if we enter anything here and load this, we get the error page, which also has this styling, as you can see. And that is basically how you should think about it. Use such a global file for global styles, especially if you have multiple layouts. If you don't, feel free to use the default layout file instead, the style section there. Don't add scoped. Don't add it here because you want to have global styles. Or provide layout specific styles, of course. Or finally, go into your components and style these, typically with scoped styles to not spoil the styles to other components, or do it on the pages, or typically both. Typically, you use all these features because some styles are application wide, some are page specific, and some are really component specific. Focusing on the component level is the best way though, because you want to have reusable and standalone pieces in your app.